Welcome. I'm Diane Martin, your host and coach for the Digitally Sassy podcast, helping a community of female entrepreneurs DIY their business. I'll teach you how to build your online presence, show you how to save money, and give you the best ways to step in and rock your social media. Yes, you can DIY your business, and I'll show you how with plain language and doable strategies. Let's go. Today's topic is about WordPress plugins. With over 54,000 different plugins in the directory, it can be overwhelming knowing what ones you should choose and what ones do you need. Plugins offer your site additional functionality that do not come with your theme or in the WordPress core. You will find online, as with most things, a wide variety of opinions on plugins. In the end, it can be a matter of personal preference, really. There are generally many plugins that aim to do the same thing, and what you like about one may be what someone else dislikes. So sometimes it's a matter of trying a couple out and seeing what really is working for you and has the functionality that you specifically are looking for. In choosing plugins, there are a few things to consider. First, is it being updated by the developer? And when you look at the plugins in your WordPress backend, it'll say when the last update occurred, and it really should be within, at the long range, 6 months. The WordPress core is updating very frequently, and most of the time when that happens, the plugins are also updated to be compatible with that core. So you really do want one that is being attended to by the developer. Is it compatible with your version of WordPress? And again, in that backend plugin section, it will tell you whether it is compatible with your current version of WordPress. Number 3, does it have the functionality you are looking for? So have a clear goal when adding a plugin to your site. Know what you want from it. And 4, is it well used and does it have good ratings? That's the other step I look at. How many downloads has it had and are the ratings good? If it's just a few downloads and an excellent rating, well, it's probably those pretty close to the developer doing those first few ratings. But if it has substantial downloads and still maintains a decent rating, then you're probably pretty good to go. There's 2 things about plugins you should be aware of. 1, they can be a source of security vulnerabilities for your website. It's important to keep them updated on your site and know that versions need updating fairly frequently. You need to go into your WordPress and update your plugins. Your plugin list in WordPress will tell you which ones need updating, and generally it's just a simple clicking of the button. But if you build your website and you forget and you don't go into the back end very often, your plugins will become very dated and it just increases the vulnerability on your site. The second thing to be aware of, if your site stops functioning properly, a plugin is probably the culprit. It's generally the first place you'll look for what the problem is. Occasionally they don't play nice with each other. So if this happens, the first step is to deactivate your plugins to determine which one could be the problem. And that's happened to me, and it'll probably happen to you at some point. And it may be a plugin you've had on your site for a while, it's ticking along just fine, and then suddenly it stops playing. And some of it has to do with all the various updating, so the WordPress core updating, the theme updating, and the plugin updates, and if there's any bugs in there. So it's important that if your site does stop working, again, first step is to deactivate those plugins and then add them back in and see if there's one in particular you can attribute to the problem. Okay, so I'm going to go into some of my go-to plugins that I use on my sites or on my client sites to give you a bit of a start on what is out there. And these aren't in any real particular order. I've gone through and I'm going to share those with you. So the first one is putting an SEO support thing. How's that for a plugin name? An SEO support thing on your website. So basically, it'll help you in your writing of your blog and your webpage content in terms of being as supportive for search engine optimization as possible. So things like making sure your title tags are okay and your keyword density is good, and all those sort of pieces. What is the metadata that's showing on Google that'll help people to click through? And all those kind of pieces go into the SEO. And what these plugins do is they help you do that in a really easy, user-friendly way. So you don't need to get into the coding. You don't need to necessarily 100% understand everything, but it will support you and tell you where you need to fix things and kind of how you do. Now, there's two that are really common out there, and one is Yoast. It's really popular out there, and I've used it, and it's quite good. And there's another one I've just started using recently called SEO Press, and I quite like it. So I have it on my Digitally Sassy site right now, just trying it out. I like to try new things, so that's me. SEO Press is, I think, in some ways I like a little bit better than Yoast, but that's just personal opinion. Both those are really popular and will do the job for you. It helps you to sort of connect your site and display it as best you can for search engines. The one other piece that is really important for websites is that security, especially on the WordPress websites. They do have a reputation for being hacked, and they can get hacked. And that's why I say those plugins need to be updated all the time. Now, there's a couple that I've used. One is WordFence, and it's really popular. And both these have free versions and paid versions. So I usually start with the free version. And if there's a functionality I feel that I really need or I'm really missing, I may upgrade to a paid version. The WordFence is quite good, and it's really popular out there. But I did have it not play nice with some of my other plugins. So I've switched to Securi. So it's Securi. And it is also really good. But I think both those are good places to start. If someone is trying to hack in to your website or even use a bot, they'll try logging in using a number of different things, and it'll stop them. And you can set 10, 20, 30 attempted logins from the same IP will be blocked, and it'll send you alerts when things are changed on your website. So if you get a file in your backend that has changed, you'll get alerts and things like that. It's really a priority. You need something to do with security as a plugin on your website. Let's talk about e-commerce and shopping carts. So a shopping cart system on your WordPress site can turn it into a storefront. So people can online order things from you, whether it be services, digital downloads, subscription boxes, or just a general product store. There's a couple main players in the space. The one you probably have heard of is the WooCommerce plugin. Now, it is made to be compatible with many of the themes and plugins, and you see it a lot in terms of WooCommerce. And it, I'm sure, works excellently well. There's another one, though, that's kind of underrated that I personally like, and it is called WP Easy Cart. And again, I'll have all these links to the plugins and the names of them on my show notes on the website, digitallysassy.com. So going back to Easy Cart, so there's the free version, a professional version, and a premium version. And I'm going to jump right up to the premium version because it is only $99 US a year, which I really like. And it includes all their extensions. So the thing with going back to WooCart is you have to buy extensions. So there might be a flat rate that looks quite appealing, but to get a shipping module, you need to buy it. To get another thing, you need to buy it. So you need to kind of look at what pieces you really need, what functionality you need for your site, and decide what the best fit is. Now, the Easy Cart works great with short codes, so it does work with Elementor and Ocean WP, two of my favorites right now. And it's really easy to use. So I just want to shout out to them. That's great. I have no affiliation with them other than I've been using them for years. I think the one lump sum pricing is great. And for those of you who may be in Canada, they do have a Canadian shipping module with Canada Post, which for us Canadians is pretty handy and nice to have. Now, if you're a blogger out there, the spam protection for the comment section under your blog is really important. And if you don't have any protection in place, you will find yourself bloated with spammy blog comments. It's amazing how quickly they find your site and start posting on it. And a lot of these are kind of robot things, I think, in terms of posting. So you need to have some protection in there as well. So I highly recommend, now I'm going to say this wrong, I think, Akismet.com. So I'm going to spell that for you because I can't say it. So AKISMET.com. There's a free version for personal sites and blogs, a low month pay for a plus version, and there's also an enterprise if you have multiple sites. So what it does is it prevents those spammy posts coming in, and it's brilliant at what it does. So it really helps protect your site from spam. If you're not looking at it for a day and someone starts posting strange comments, this is the tool for you, and it'll keep it clean, and it super duper works. So if you have a blog with a comment section open for people, make sure you subscribe to this. You do need to go on to their website to set up an account with them, and then you can download it as a plugin on your WordPress site. Let's look at Google Analytics in your site. So when you set up your WordPress site, you'll also go into Google Analytics, or I hope you do, go into Google Analytics and set up an account for your site. And what Google Analytics does is it lets you know how many people have been visiting your site, how long they're staying, what pages they're staying on. And, this, I'm giving you info on the most simplistic level. You can really get in there and set goals, and it'll track goals for e-commerce sites and the works. But it gives you a feeling for how your site is performing, what your bounce rates are on the site, and those sort of things. And I'll probably do a podcast just on sort of the language behind Google Analytics a little bit for you. But it's very helpful to have a plugin on your site as well, because then you're kind of in one spot and you get to see the data. Now there's two that I'm using right now connecting the WordPress site. One is Google Analytics for WordPress, and another one that I'm fairly new to but quite like is the Monster Insights plugin. So it's created by Monster Insights, and it's a Google Analytics plugin, and it gives you a dashboard right in your site where you can see. So what you need to do is set up your Google Analytics account, and then get in and download the Monster Insights plugin. Tell it to connect, and it'll find you based on your email and your site, and it'll connect. And it was really easy peasy to set up. But then suddenly you have this insight and data, because data is your information. You'll know what pages or posts are performing well. What are people liking on your site, and what are they kind of ignoring? What are those bounce rates? Is there a functionality problem on your site that is showing up in the way people are using your site, and those sort of things? So making sure that you're paying attention to your Google Analytics when you bring it into your dashboard, I think you pay a little more attention because it's right there when you're working on your site. So let's talk visual builders, because I think people really like these. And when I first started using a visual builder, which was truthfully just in this last year, I gotta say I didn't like it. It took me a little while to figure things out. But now that I'm using this particular one, I'm really quite liking it. And I'm using Elementor, and I also have a pro account with them. But you can get by with just the Elementor basics if you're using a good theme. Now, I think my frustration originally was I had a theme that was very sophisticated. It didn't necessarily work super well with Elementor. So I have gone to Ocean WP theme with the pro content that they have. The theme itself is free, but you can get extras like sticky headers and things like that with the pro content. And Elementor, and they play really well together. And this is what I use when we're doing our group website builds, is the Elementor and the Ocean WP. And it's a visual builder, so you're not working in the blocks on the back end, you're working on the front end. So you can see what you're designing, and if you have, an artistic sort of visual type of person, it's really helpful. And it's helpful for me because you can really see what's working, what's not working as you're doing it, which is really helpful. Elementor also lets you see what it'll look like in a tablet size. And you can also visualize in the mobile size. So if something isn't working in mobile, you can not have it show on mobile. It's quite a brilliant visual editor. Now with this new change to the Gutenberg editor from the classic editor, some people, it takes a while. Any change is going to take a while for you to figure out. But if you really preferred the classic editor, there is a plugin for that. But going to the Elementor, the front end, it doesn't really change based on that Gutenberg editor. You put in a title on a page and off you go to the Elementor. So just, something to try if you're interested in that. There is, like I said, I had a learning curve as well with it. But once I kind of got sort of that mental understanding of it, really can do neat things with it. There's a few other visual builders. Beaver, Divi Themes has a visual builder with it as well. And I haven't tried those, so I can't really speak to them. But people seem to love them. So there's those ones you can check out as well. Another plugin I wanted to give a shout out to is the Facebook Pixels. So this comes into play if you're planning on doing any advertising on Facebook, which I love advertising on Facebook because you can really be very specific with who sees it. It can be people who like A, and you can choose what gender, what age group. You can really hone in on your ideal audience in your advertising on Facebook. But what the Facebook Pixels does is it lets you retarget people. And you're probably wondering, I'm sure this has been done for you, where you were on a website and suddenly in Facebook, you're starting to see ads for that particular thing in the website you were looking at. And that's from Facebook Pixels. So Facebook Pixels puts a little tracking code on your website. And so when you're creating your ad in Facebook, you can say, hey, I want to include everybody who went and looked at my website. So it helps you get in front of your audience a lot more effectively. I guess you're not guessing who they are. They've already seen you. They've already checked out your page. And the more times, the more repetition that your audience has a chance to see you, the better off it is for you and that relationship you're building with them. So the Facebook Pixels is an original one, and it's from, I'm not sure if it's developed from Facebook, but it's like the original or the official, I think it's official Facebook Pixels plugin. And it's super easy to set up on your site. And I would set it up now, even if you're not doing any advertising immediately, I would have it there so it's starting to collect data on who's coming to your site for you, so that you can retarget that in Facebook should you want to do some advertising. Alrighty, we're going to talk about GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation that came out of the European Union. New legislation, and if you haven't been working online and you're just getting going, you may have seen the websites you're visiting. Suddenly, everybody has cookie notices that you need to accept to remove that notice from the site. And what it is that by law, anyone visiting, well, I'm not going to interpret the law. I suggest you go have a look at it in more detail. But essentially, it's a regulation on data protection and privacy for individuals within the European Union, even when they're visiting other places. So generally speaking, your safest bet is to have that. So you need a cookie policy first, so a page that understands cookies on the website. So with your Google Analytics on there, you're keeping track of cookies. You may not have known that. So you need to have a cookie policy, how you're using them. They're basically helping you to improve your website for your visitors and those sort of things. Again, the Facebook Pixels is kind of like a cookie there. So having a proper cookie notification, GDPR friendly, is important. And there is one plugin, well, there's probably a gazillion plugins for this, but it's Cookie Notice for GDPR, which is pretty simple to set up and plug in, and it'll pop up for people newly visiting your site, and you can accept the cookies from there. So those are some, like there are so many plugins, and those are some of the go-to, but don't forget your security. Don't forget your data. If you're using shopping carts, there's some things there, how you're building your form. So depending on what your site is, you're going to be looking for different things. So I have clients who do events or workshops, and so they want a calendar for that tied into a registration system. Perfect. You may want a members only area, and there's some great plugins for that as well. So really depending on the functionality of your site and what you're hoping to achieve is certainly a plugin of some kind for it. Again, the thing to look for is it being supported by the developer? What are the reviews? How many downloads does it have? Is it compatible? Etc., etc. You can even create your site into an e-learning site and those sort of things. There's lots of good plugins for that. So again, plugins add that extra special functionality. Some of them are to protect your site and some of them are to provide more service and value to your customers. So do have a look at the plugins, but don't add a whole bunch of plugins for the sake of having plugins and not use them, because again, they are a source of security vulnerability. So if you're not using a particular plugin, you downloaded it, you tried it, you didn't like it, uninstall it. Just don't deactivate it. Take it right off your site so you're not having to keep up and manage that. So that's my plugin stuff for today. If you have questions on plugins, wondering how to go about installing them and those sort of things, you can pop on over to the Digitally Sassy Facebook community group, and I'm there. I hang out there, and join our group of women, and you can ask questions and we can dive into it a little bit further. Take care, everyone. Cheers now.